And greetings. Happy Friday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace. He is Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. She is our beloved sister and colleague, Jill Savage. She'll be joining us here for the Deace Group. We are brought to you by our friends over at First Cup Coffee Company. They got a flavor for every freedom-loving American. You can try it right now or try it again and get a discount when you use my promo code DACE when you go to firstcup.com. That's firstcup.com, promo code DACE. They'll ship it to you within days of being roasted, so it's as fresh as absolutely possible. And they share the same values of faith, family, and freedom that you do. Firstcup.com is where you want to go. Use the promo code DACE for the discount. Promo code DACE for the discount at firstcup.com. Also, don't forget about the latest iteration of our other sister and colleagues. That would be Ali Stuckey's Share the Arrows event. All right. They launched this last year to lots of success. It's coming back again on October the 11th in Allen, Texas. So why are we telling you now? Because May 11th is Mother's Day. And this would be a great, unique gift for your mom or your wife, who's the mother of your children. All right, the gift of fellowship, spiritual nourishment. Yeah, the flowers and stuff are nice, but this is something that would be more impactful and last even longer. Tickets are going to go fast, so don't wait. Go to sharethearrows.com. Grab those tickets today, because nothing says I appreciate you like giving her a weekend filled with worship and fellowship at sharethearrows.com. That's sharethearrows.com. All right. Since we saw a conclave take place yesterday, I need to have a mini one here today before we get started. All right. So next hour will be Feedback Friday. We'll get to the Deace Group here in a second. Jill needs to be a part of this as well. All right. So they just installed the live shot in my home, and for the uninitiated, that's the kind of shot that Jill's on basically right now. All right. So it's an upgrade of the shot that I had on before, and vast upgrade. Yeah, and they installed it there because we're anticipating. I just got word right now that the tentative hope is we're going to move in June 12th to the 15th in the new building. All right, to the new facility. So that would put us, though, after a few days of building, that would mean it would actually be the following week that we would actually debut in there after Father's Day. All right, is what we're aiming for right now. So that's about a month from now, a little more than a month from now. All right. Temps, the reason why they installed that in my studio is I know we kind of joke about it to make light of it, but the truth of the matter is we did have a very serious wasp infestation in this building and in this room. And you can laugh all you want, but it's true. All right, Aaron, I thought we killed 14 wasps in the summer. Aaron said, no, that was one day we did that. We did that in one day.
It was not killing. It was killing and finding.
Killing and finding. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Anything more than 3 is ridiculous. 14 is, literally satanic attack. Okay. All right. So they put this in there because when the weather warms up, I can just do this from home and not have to literally risk my life or a trip at least to the ER to do this show. Next week is the first time we're supposed to have temps consistently into the 80s here in our community. All right. And I am debating whether or not to just go ahead and take advantage of the live shot. I know everybody wants to rag on me for being lazy, but the truth of the matter, and don't get me wrong, that is true. Okay. When it comes to, travel. But the reality is I love being in here with the guys. All right. And as soon as, soon last fall, as the weather consistently got under 70 degrees, man, I came back right away. All right. So I love being here. I love the energy with the guys. I love doing this with them. Okay.
Did you just say I have energy?
I love the energy that we have when we're together is what I meant. All right. So Jill and everybody else, what's the verdict on this? Should I just go ahead? Because if I choose, because of the temps getting into the 80s, to go ahead and just go home from here, this would be the last time I ever do a show, most likely, in this particular facility. All right. So what do we think? Is there a definitive dude code thing here? Is it a gray area? What's everybody think?
I don't think it's a debate. I think you need to go home.
You do?
Yeah.
Todd?
Probably so, because I think we're just going to keep having this exact conversation like every day.
That's true. If I come back, I'm going to be saying, okay, well, what if it's 84, 85 every day? Right.
Yeah, and that's fun. Yeah. That's fun.
How fun do you think it is for me, though? Have you put yourself in my shoes where there's literally 2 things on planet Earth you're allergic to?
Everybody and in this moment listening to this show.
And one of those things literally lands on your desk, okay, multiple times a day as you're sitting here trying to, do a show in front of, a fairly large group of people. Jill, what say you? What do you think?
Well, Steve, I would never try to put myself in your Crocs, but if I'm going to...
Which I am wearing right now, by the way. Yes.
Steve, we know.
See?
know.
See?
I say go ahead and go home, but I will let you in on a little secret here down in Dallas. Our air conditioning is broke, so you think you have it bad there. Ooh. Imagine being in Texas as things get warmer. It's not just going to be a wasps problem here. It's going to be an interesting summer here at the main headquarters.
I think I saw Sarah Gonzalez got attacked by a cockroach the other day, didn't she?
That did happen.
She did.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah,
she
it was
posted
gigantic.
about that. Yeah. So that was another thing. We had the AC go out. Was that 2 summers ago, Aaron?
Yes.
In 23?
Yeah.
And they just said, we'll fix it when we can fix it. Literally the hottest July we ever had in Iowa history. We had no AC for that entire month. Now, at least it's happened to you guys. Listen, it's already warm down there, okay? But at least it's happening in May and not August, right? So one way to look at it is, Jill, by the time the 100-degree weather comes, that thing will be revved up, repaired, and ready to go, right? Right?
Yeah, you know how big this building is, though. It's not
big.
A cheap fix here, Steve.
Okay. All right. I think I appreciate everybody's recommendation. The audience is it looks like Todd and Aaron at Reagan National about 5 a.m. in the morning the other day. At this point, zonked out, right? But I just thought we needed to have a discussion about this because I'm in a gray area. I want to be here. I like being here, but man, I really don't want to get stung by wasps.
We know.
I know. So let's get to it. It's time for the Deace Group. Your weekly look at the week that was begins, as it always does, with issue 1. Bleep Lord Nefarious says.
Barbarians are at the gate. You need a barbarian to fight back against you. And what I'm getting from you is you don't really believe that the barbarians aren't, the traditional barbarians. It's just, I don't like the left.
We must love and support one another. We have nothing to lose but our time. We have nothing to lose but our shame.
And think about how contrary this is to the example of Jesus.
Let me tell you that we know how to use a chair, whether we pulling it up or we doing something else with it.
Because Jesus comes to ancient Israel when it's under Roman occupation, where the people of Israel are deeply oppressed. And he doesn't come and overthrow the government. He doesn't come and rule in the way that these Christian right people want to rule.
Tomorrow, a new state law goes into effect. It would ban pride flags from public buildings like schools or city halls. But tonight, the Salt Lake City Council approved a workaround, incorporate the pride flag into an official variant of the city flag.
He comes in and he loves other people. He serves other people.
Well, on my day of judgment, I might be standing in front of trans Jesus. I don't know.
And he even forgives the people who are executing him as they're executing him.
We know that the sex offender registry contains a massive array of crimes, including, having sex in a car or in a park. That gets you on the sex offender registry. We also know that LGBTQ people have been massively and disproportionately targeted and subjected to being slammed onto the sex offender registry. That's the whole history.
And yet you look at this Christian right, the MAGA Christian right, it is will to power, it is cruelty, it is dominance.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
This is nothing about this is drawn from historic Christian theology.
So why do you think the vice president lost, and were you surprised?
They went the route of the sexist route, the whole route. I mean, this is a woman, she's this, she's that. I've never seen quite as successful and a consistent campaign undercutting the notion that a woman couldn't lead the country and a woman of mixed race.
A quick point of order. I don't say this very often, but to be fair to David French, the next time Jesus comes, it will not be to overthrow a government, because it will be to overthrow all of them. He will overthrow every single one, every last one of them, with a robe dipped in blood and a sword in his mouth as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. So just thought I'd add some context there that I'm sure Dave failed to mention for the kind folks there at the televised insane asylum known as MSNBC. And with that, Jill, first question goes to you as the guest, and ladies first, of course. What was the best of the worst and why?
Well, I'm going to go with Ilhan Omar because I just did a quick fact check on my phone because she's saying that white men are the biggest problem in this country, except she's married to one, right? She's not scared enough to just keep them out of her own household, of her own wedding, of her own entire life, except she can go on national television and she can gaslight the rest of the country and say, y'all need to be scared of white men in this country, except for me and my husband. That's going to be fine, of course.
That is very well played. That is very well played. Todd, good luck following up that. Go ahead.
I think I can. There's a lot of awful and dumb in there. I have some unique experience with this. I lived in Salt Lake City, Utah for about 3 years in the late 90s. I look back very fondly on my experience there. But in order to go to a bar, which they have, but you just can't walk into them, or you couldn't. You had to be a member of these bars. Otherwise, you could not get a drink. This is how they regulated. Big deal there. The Mormon church has these things called ward dances where they get young people together. No liquor is allowed at those things whatsoever. This is how they mingled back in the early 90s, not that long ago.
It was kind of long ago. Like when Aaron was born and he's 30.
Yeah, well, but not... It's not a black and white film or anything like that, okay?
Fair.
Now, the same Salt Lake City, Utah. Those young people at those war dances are the ones with the bar regulation. Now they're my age, in charge in Salt Lake City, Utah, and they're unanimously voting for the pride flag to be the official government flag. Folks, in Utah.
You said government flag.
I think so, but
okay,
if I didn't, I'm fine with that too.
It was perhaps the best Freudian slip in the 18 years that this show has existed. Okay, carry on, sir. Carry on, fine, sir.
See, we're going to go on and talk about other specific things with Trump, the Pope. Like this is, but in terms of us, we the people part, the governing ourselves part. Once again, Utah, you stepped to the plate and reminded us once again, we suck.
Aaron, that was pretty good. You're right. You did pretty good. Aaron, what do you think?
You know, has enough been said about David French? He just lives to basically slander. Is that basically his job title?
He's a slanderer of the brethren.
Yes.
That's what he is.
Yes. Is that his job title now?
Yeah, he is paid to slander the brethren.
Just want to make sure that we're clear on that. I was going to mention something about Salt Lake City as well. You know, this is, again, just a case study. Diversity, equity, inclusion is always the opposite of those things. There's this thing called a Christian flag. I don't know if necessarily Catholics do this, but in evangelical churches, it's kind of a white flag, a blue box in the corner with the cross, an empty cross. That was the flag that I grew up seeing in church, the Christian flag. Could we get one of those at the Salt Lake City City Hall? Could we get one of those with the little emblem, the city emblem? No. This is not about anything other than dominion.
Yes.
It's just a symbol of dominion. We are the ones who rule over you. State laws be damned. We will flaunt that in your face every chance we get. It's not even a virtue signal. It's a flex. That's what they're doing right now.
Amen. Right there. It is customary of conquerors to claim your children as their own and replace your flags with theirs. Those are trademark examples of what happens when you are a conquered people. Things like that occur. And those things are happening in our culture and have been for several years as we speak. Let's get to the exit question on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the odds that Jill Savage there, no matter how lovely she looks today, she has almost zero to worry about being sexually harassed by one Lindsey Graham. Amen? Okay? But 10 being the odds, amen. But 10 being the odds that virtually every single able-bodied man that Jill Savage has ever met in her life probably does. All right? Rank this week's level of total depravity, Todd.
10.
Aaron.
8.
Oh.
Didn't see that coming. All right, Jill, go ahead.
10.
10. Jill is a 10 as well. All right, before we get to issue 2 here, a reminder from our friends over at Jase Medical. You're hearing a lot of talk on social media right now about this compound of ivermectin and mebendazole, and maybe it can have some promising results when it comes to cancer. Our friend Megan Basham, she posted on X just a couple days ago. Did you guys see this? Her own experience with trying this compound in addition to the conventional treatments. Okay. And anecdotally, she saw some promising test results as well. Okay. Now, she did it, and that's what I would do if I was diagnosed with cancer or someone I loved was. I mean, we'd fire everything. Okay. So, and she wanted to be very careful to say, hey, what ratio the conventional treatments I've taken had something to do with these promising test results, and what ratio of this belongs to ivermectin and mebendazole, I don't know. But she did say, I still have not even had my cancer surgery yet. All right. And so I'm seeing very promising results. So if you want to give it a shot, all right, no promises, but we believe you're an adult and you can make your own decisions, and so do our friends over at Jase Medical. So they've got that available for you right now in a unique 90-day supply, and it'll be the fastest way and most affordable option on the market if you want to give it a shot, up to 35% less than you can find it anywhere else. So you'll get your 90-day supply of compounded ivermectin and mebendazole, all right, with our friends over at Jase. And yes, you can still get the conventional Jase case too, and the one that you can extend, and you can customize to what your particular needs are. When you go to jase.com and use the promo code DACE at checkout, you'll get a discount. Promo code DACE at checkout for a discount when you go to jase.com, Jase, jase.com, use the promo code DACE for a discount at checkout. All right, let's get to issue 2. The first American Pope.
The College of Cardinals voted, and white smoke issued from the Sistine Chapel, and the conclave dropped a bombshell. The first Pope from the United States of America, Robert Prevost, is the new Pope. Prevost took the papal name Pope Leo XIV and said in his first greeting, among other things, quote, "To the Church of Rome, a special greeting. We must seek together how to be a missionary church, a church that builds bridges and dialogues, always open to welcome, like the square, with open arms to all who need our charity, presence, dialogue, and love," end quote. Pope Leo's previous reposts on his X account, however, are raising eyebrows. Reposts like this one chastising American Vice President J.D. Vance over his commentary on Order of Loves when it comes to immigration. Reposting commentary of ending racism after the death of St. George Floyd, and retweeting radical Democrat Senator Chris Murphy calling for gun control. Only time will tell, though, how this Pope shakes out. Another Francis or a clearer vision for the Catholic Church.
All right, let's just start with a general question. Did we get a woke Pope? Todd, I'll start with you.
No idea. And that's one of the most concerning things, because yesterday in real time, trying to digest all this and the American aspect of it being very disorienting.
He was 64-1, by the way, on betting markets. Robert Prevost was heading into yesterday.
I don't
64
care about
to
any
1.
of that. I just we can't have another Pope Francis. It was the everything about living in this world during the time when he was Pope was harder and more confusing because of his lack of leadership. So that's, and the connective tissue there that Aaron just fairly portrayed that came right out of the gates you could see, and I wanted you to see the fact that I was very uncomfortable because I wanted certainty, and I don't think we got it to answer your question. Now, today's homily was outstanding. It was really, really good stuff. It addressed a lot of stuff we talk about with free trade. It connects to why he named himself Leo. But I'm answering your question, and the fairest I can be is we don't know, and that's not good.
Jill, same question to you. Did we get a woke pope?
Yeah. I think if I had to guess right now, because like Todd said, nobody knows yet, I would guess that it's a woke light pope. And I go based on the fact that Pope Francis made him a cardinal just fairly recently. And it didn't take very long for Pope Leo the 14th to get elected, right? 4 rounds is not a very long time here for them to do this over there in the Vatican. So what is the state of religion right now in the United States? It's the first American pope. Would we all kind of agree that things aren't that great here, right? Like I'm concerned about that. But then even when you go in further to what's going on in the United States, and we had Bishop Strickland, who was one of the best that we had in the entire country. He was part of this, getting him kicked out of the church. And then Strickland wouldn't go through and resign. So Pope Francis said, you know what, you're out. But we now know that Pope Leo the 14th played a role in that, at least. So that concerns me. The other thing is he's not just an American pope. He's a dual citizen from Peru. And I actually had spent some time in Peru, randomly enough, during COVID. And guys, what we saw there, you thought lockdowns in the United States were bad. COVID was horrifying there in Peru. And so if this is the world that he was a part of at that point in time, and these are the things that he is going to take in with him, right? We're all just based on our worldly experiences here for this. I'm very concerned for those things in immigration as well. Now, is he going to be a woke pope? I don't know. I hope he's not. I hope that he's better. But I still have my little holy water from the Vatican with Pope Francis's face on it. And it still annoys me every single day that that's the face that's on there. So at least, maybe I'll have to make a return trip and get something new.
Aaron, same question to you. What do you think?
Well, my spidey senses certainly are tingling on a number of levels. Those reposts and posts on social media, that's one thing, very concerning. What Jill just brought up with Strickland, very concerning, very suspicious. And then there's the fact that this was basically on nobody's radar, except for one guy. I saw Steve Bannon less than a week ago specifically named this guy.
You're right. I saw that clip too.
So he gets his props for that. In fact, Bannon's analysis in like 50 seconds is basically exactly how things went down this week. So props to him for that. But other than that, this guy was on nobody's radar. And all of a sudden, after like 24 hours of meeting in the conclave, or was it 48 hours, we have a pope very quickly. And he's from the United States of America, although, as Jill pointed out, he's more Peruvian than American at this point, but still, in somewhat recent elections, registered to vote here in America. So that in and of itself, it's like, again, why? This is not really on anybody's radar from America. However, this is just from a Protestant's perspective. I don't believe the same things about the Pope that Catholics believe, otherwise I would be Catholic. However, I do recognize the importance and the opportunity of having a bold pope, a bold moral vision, a clear moral vision from that seat. I understand what that can do and what that means and how helpful that would be, at least in the West. Mm-hmm. And so I brought up the example to Todd before we got on air this morning. Sometimes God can use people that you would maybe least expect, that maybe have a rap sheet, so to speak, that is not something, or that's less than desirable. God can still use those people to do things that you would not expect. I used the example of Kim Reynolds here in Iowa. Nobody expected her to govern the way that she did here in Iowa. Nobody expects this guy based on what little we know about him. I don't think many people expect him to be a bold voice of clarity. Maybe God can use him. So I'm going to kind of step back, wait, and see with this guy. I'm not going to dog him every day to begin with. If he ends up being a Pope Francis, again, a redux, or even worse, that will be abundantly clear when the time comes. But I'm going to just kind of let this thing play out a little bit.
And per my Freudian slip before, the flags have already come out and they're concerned about him. So, there's a feather in his cap.
Before we get to the exit question, I just want to share with the audience for a few minutes some of the things that I saw yesterday in the aftermath of this election that caught my eye across the spectrum that I shared on X. All right. The new Pope's brother asking him, did you watch the movie Conclave so you know how to behave before you head off to Rome? And he told me he had just finished watching the movie. That's It's not a really good movie if you're the kind of Catholic that Todd or Jill is. The new Pope didn't post on X once during the 2024 election. In 2025, he posted 5 times. He criticized J.D. Vance. Aaron pointed that out. Posted another article critiquing Vance. Retweeted about the previous Pope's health twice. And retweeted criticism of Trump and Bukele's laughter at Abrego Garcia. Al Gore tweeted this yesterday about Pope Leo XIV when he was cardinal. He urged the world to move from, quote, words to action. On the environmental crisis facing the world, his leadership as Pope will be so crucial on this vitally important topic, or vitally important issue. James Martin, who is a renowned heretic. Fair? Renowned heretic.
Yes.
Okay. Quote, I know Pope Leo XIV to be a kind, open, humble, modest, decisive, hardworking, straightforward, trustworthy, and down-to-earth man, a brilliant choice. May God bless him. I'm looking for more here. A selection of things that he retweeted that, Aaron, you already highlighted from Chris Murphy and others. Here's one. Chicagoans are very familiar with Robert Prevost, now Pope Leo. He is indeed quite conservative on the social issues of marriage and family, albeit not conservative on the migrant issue. Okay? Pope Leo XIV, during his tenure as bishop in Peru, quote, the promotion of gender ideology is confusing because it seeks to create genders that don't exist, unquote. Right? Jill alluded to this. Cardinal Robert Prevost is who Pope Francis met with right before outspokenly pro-life Texas Bishop Joseph Strickland was defrocked. And Strickland and he was basically defrocked for calling Joe Biden a fake Catholic and demanding that he be denied communion. All right. And then, Aaron, there's your tweet. President Trump can still be Pope if Mike Pence has the courage, which is the absolute best thing I saw tweeted about this all yesterday, anywhere literally in the world. Okay. All right. So those are some things. And I tried to get a broad perspective of things, as you can see in what I just pop culture or different issues. Okay. I will just say for me quickly, what I am struck by is that we have to search to find these things out. Again, maybe I'm just naive and simplistic as a Protestant, but it seems to me we kind of would want to know for sure and for certain what the head of a church thinks on vital issues and have it be unequivocal before we make them the head of a church. And that would go for your little country church, with a board of elders, or something as, momentous as the Catholic Church. But is that fair?
Yeah. Billboard Chris asked, so he said, is this a good or a bad Pope? And I don't know what strain of spirituality he comes from, but he has obviously had some skin in the game of fighting. And I said, that's one of the hardest pills to swallow.
Is we don't know.
We don't know.
All right, so exit question quickly. If what your initial instincts about Pope Leo XIV's ultimate legacy will turn out to be were a form of religious music, which form of religious music would it be? A, the old rugged cross. B, Jesus is my boyfriend. C, Gregorian chants. D, hippies playing the banjo with rainbow flag adornments, prattling on and on about Jesus as Che Guevara. Aaron?
Sadly, D.
Jill?
He's not a rainbow flag guy. I'm going to go Jesus is my boyfriend.
So you guys' version of seeker friendly? Okay.
This morning, after I'm right in the wave of the homily, he went all the way back to St. Ignatius of Antioch. So I've got to go with Gregorian chant today.
Okay.
It's pending.
All right.
Wow, no vinegar?
But again, the fact that our responses are all over the place and there's evidence.
This is the point.
And relatively recent evidence. We're not like delving back like 30 years.
Right.
There's relative recent evidence for, that's why I gave those 4 options. Just in what I was able to find in a half an hour yesterday, there was evidence for I could find evidence for all 4 of these conclusions if I wanted to.
I agree. And if we can have enough grace to say that Trump 2.0 is better than 1.0 and more necessary, in these 24 hours, I have to be open to the same from the Holy Father.
Fair. Let's come back and let's talk. Speaking of Trump, let's talk about what the next 100 days has in store. Stay tuned. Friends, your generosity, our friends at Voice of Judah Israel want to say thank you. You guys have been a lifeline for thousands in the Holy Land of Israel. Just last month, for example, an 89-year-old Holocaust survivor had food on her table because of you guys. And still, there's over 1,200 vulnerable families that you guys are helping to reach each month just in the last year through your generosity to Voice of Judah Israel. And yeah, they are providing essentials, okay? Charitable essentials. But they're also supplying the most essential thing, the gospel, word and sacrament, discipleship, evangelism. You're helping doors to open to Messiah Yeshua there in his birthplace, the Holy Land. Let's keep it going. All right. So if you guys are willing, for as little as $35 a month, you can provide a month of meals for a family that creates an opportunity to share the hope that we have in Jesus with his native tribe. So will you guys be that miracle today? Go to vojisrael.org/Steve. VOJ for Voice of Judah. vojisrael.org/Steve. That's vojisrael.org/Steve. All right, let's get back to the Deace Group, and we welcome back our beloved sister and colleague, Jill Savage, here as we march on with your weekly look at the week that was. Let's get to issue 3, the next 100 days.
The Trump administration has taken several victory laps on multiple issues after 100 days, but it's pretty clear the issue they're most proud of is border security, releasing the sizzle reel last week during the first 100 days festivities.
Heading back to the White House, Mr. Trump pledges to take swift and sweeping action to close the southern border and to deport millions of migrants here illegally.
Donald Trump's political career has been defined by his promise to deal with illegal immigration.
My administration has launched the most sweeping border and immigration crackdown in American history.
We've seen illegal border crossings drop 98%.
The southern border now, under his leadership, has the lowest number of illegal crossings in the history of the United States of America.
We are the face of why there is becoming change. President Trump, thank you.
He's a man of his word.
He wants to get rid of fentanyl. He wants to make sure that we stop the killing of innocent Americans.
President Trump was able to do in 7 weeks what the Biden administration couldn't or wouldn't do in 4 years. Right now, as you and I are talking, we have the most secure border in the history of this nation.
The media and our friends in the Democrat Party kept saying we needed new legislation, but it turned out that all we really needed was a new president.
All right. So that's a look back at the first 100 days. First question, Aaron, I'll start this one with you. What's the biggest challenge you think the Trump White House faces in the next 100 days?
Yes. They are on a collision course with two entities, the other two branches of government.
Yes.
And again, we've discussed this ad nauseum when it comes to Congress and just asking the Trump administration when they've got, a million fronts open already. And that's good that they're actually doing everything that they possibly can. And I really do believe that this administration is doing all they possibly can within their power at the moment, executively, to try to affect their agenda, to implement their agenda. And I really do believe that. And so asking them to do more, I realize, is asking them to do one more thing after they've opened up all of these fronts. I understand that. But they are on a collision course with the other two branches of government. Judicial overreach. Is this going to be a collision course or a controlled demolition? Meaning a collision course where the Trump administration just out and out says, no, we're not going to obey. We're not going to obey these pissant judges. Somebody got mad at me for saying pissant the other day, so I'm just going to say it more because it applies to these judges. It's a perfect word for them. We're just going to tell them to take a flying leap. Or is it going to be a controlled demolition where John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett realize we're forcing a collision here. So let's maybe dial back and maybe smack down some of these lower court judges. But that collision's coming, and we're fast approaching that juncture. When it comes to Congress, I just think if you're going to get anything good and lasting, they're going to have to put their thumb on the scales over there as well. Start trying to make some examples. Start exerting pressure. Start raising hell over there to get them off their asses to do their jobs. I'm not holding my breath. There are some things about this reconciliation bill that's coming up that sound pretty good. You mentioned one the other day, the REINS Act, something Republicans have tried to pass unsuccessfully for years. If that could pass if that could pass Congress, that would be a really good and lasting thing. But in terms of what's happening next, if they want to enact their agenda in a way that is permanent, in a way that the next president, hopefully not a Democrat, but the next Democrat president can't just come in and undo everything, they're going to have to face these collisions, because that's what's happening now. That's the next thing on the horizon. So when you see what's next on, what's going to be the next challenge, yes, basically all of it, because you've got one branch of government that's duplicitous, that's trying to gum up the gears of what you're trying to accomplish, and then you've got the other branch of government who just is gumming up themselves. That's what their job description apparently is. Okay, Jill, same question to you. What do you think is the Trump administration's biggest challenge in the next 100 days?
Son is right outside the door. I have no idea who it is.
We were promised to go through and get shock and awe from Trump's executive orders in the first 100 days. We definitely saw that. Now it's time for Congress to go through and codify that, because if you don't have it, as Aaron says, lasting legislation, all of this is going to be for naught. But I look at this and I just want somebody to go through and lean on them, right? Because we had the fight with Ed Martin this week for U.S. District Attorney in D.C. And you get Tom Tillis, the Republican, right? Air quotes, that's going out there and he's going to oppose all of the Trump nominations, right? He was the guy who was leaking stuff on Pete Hegseth earlier. You have to have a unified front, because if this is all going to get through to a deeper problem of trying to dismantle the deep state, but we can't even get people who are elected with R's next to their name to fall in line, then how are we going to take on the administrative state, get the deep state? There are so many bigger problems, and the clock is ticking. And the fact that Congress is just going out there and saying, oh, you know what? One of our deadlines was going to be Memorial Day. We've pushed that back to the 4th of July. I can't wait for the next update when they're like Labor Day. That's when it's going to happen, because we all know it's coming. So we need to see people go through from the administration and push on Congress with everything they have right now, because we don't have a lot of time to turn this thing around.
Well said. Todd, what do you think?
Yeah, the honeymoon, childless period of the marriage is over. Now this is about sustainability. This is about having the kids.
Great analogy.
And raising them. And modern adults these days are really bad at that. I don't have any time to myself. The kids aren't always angelic. Sometimes they poop. They're just, people are pathetic these days in that sense and this one. And looking at what's happening in Florida and what their Republicans are doing to Ron DeSantis, that's the concern right here in D.C. And it's more likely that it's going to happen in D.C. That should be shuddering. How do we not blow this one?
Then let's get to the exit question. What single piece of advice would you give the Trump White House after the first 100 days? Jill.
Stay on offense, and like the little meme that says more. That's what I want to see.
Aaron.
Just tell the judges to get bent. That would be my advice. No matter what you do after that, for the most part, that's going to be your lasting legacy, because you're going to set a precedent. You want to talk about judicial precedent? How about executive precedent? The precedent that sets would be incredibly damaging forever to that institution, to the institution of the federal court system.
Todd.
Pull the COVID jab.
I think how much of the Cali means is a proxy for the fact they haven't pulled that jab. Meaning, if they had pulled that jab and then announced Cali means, is your native tribe having the absolute frickin' out in the public view meltdown that it's currently having right now with one another and turning on each other like they are?
My answer to that question is the same thing as the Pope question. The fact that we don't know and have to ask it is a problem.
Yeah. I think, and we don't know the answer to that, but the fact that there are several guys, not just RFK, but Jay Bhattacharya and others who have posts in there now, who at various times have been very critical of the jab and the mRNA platform, and they are literally willing to address everything. I mean, we're openly having Dude, Dr. Oz is sitting next to RFK Jr. He's just talking about autism rates on Fox News last night. I mean, was that on your bingo card a year ago or like ever?
No.
The Dr. Oz 10 years ago was pimping tranny surgeries on his TV show before any of us even knew what the hell they were. Okay? And now he's sitting next to RFK Jr. while he's openly talking about, we need to find out if vaccines cause autism on Fox News last night. All right? So, I mean, we are ripping seals up all over the place, man. I mean, shibboleths are getting smashed on this front all over the place. And yet there's this one wart out here that goes unmentioned and untouched. It is very clear there is somebody that these guys report to that is telling them that they just have to leave this one alone. Okay? And who that is, whether that's the president himself, whether it's somebody that is, a gatekeeper for the president, warning them, don't go there. If you guys stay away from that, you can do whatever else you want. I don't know what it is, but that, I'm just telling you, if you're in the White House right now, the number one reason that you're doing cleanup on all kinds of fronts right now, and RFK Jr.'s got to expend political capital on this secondary appointment like 2 weeks ago, and then another one in Cali Means yesterday, and everything else, is because you haven't pulled those shots.
Yes.
That is causing unnecessary division in one of your key coalitions. It just is.
And talking about raising the kids, I know this group, not just because of vaccination, because of at-home childbirth. It's this mix of people that come together on this issue. If you betray them, they will go back to voting Democrat on this, okay? This is political insanity that you're not pulling this for the future of the Republicans.
All right, let's get to the kicker topic then. For issue 4. The next 100 days are a success for the Trump administration if what? Fill in the blank. Aaron.
I think some combination of telling the courts to kick rocks or actually somehow, man, I can't believe I'm going to say this out loud with a straight face, getting Congress to do something actually productive and positive and lasting.
I don't see any other way it can be a success unless one of those two things happens, because what Todd said earlier, we're past the childless. Now we have permission to have sex with each other because we're married, dating phase. Okay. Now gets into the real nitty gritty of, are we building a family and something sustaining, just as you said. Okay. And that is going to require either bullying the legislative branch to do its damn job, as Jill pointed out that it's not doing, or telling the judiciary branch, that's not your damn job. It's mine. I don't see any other way other than one of those two things I think has to happen. I don't see any other way. What's 100 days from now? It's May 9th. So we'd be into August at that point. Okay. So yeah. I don't see any other way. What about you, Todd?
My answer is the same as the last one, because it's that important. Pull the COVID jab.
It is causing a lot of division. For those of you that are not on X, where a lot of the Maha movement is, I mean, the whole movement it's in a meltdown right now. There's just no other way to describe it. People turning on each other, right and left, friends turning on each other, associates turning on each other. Everybody's deep state. Robert Malone's accusing people who don't want Cali Means of being deep state and bots. People are coming back and calling him, that you would know, deep state and bots. Okay, I mean, and I think a lot of it is because the most obvious thing that needs to happen is those never worked poisonous shots are still on the market. Now, even though no one's taking them, okay, except for the 5 people that are still in the discus comment section at MSNBC.com, no one's freaking taking these shots. But it symbolizes something to these people. Leaving them there untouched is causing a lot of division, and you are putting RFK Jr. in a position, man, where he is expending a lot of rocket fuel and political capital before he even has to get to the big stuff later in September on autism and everything else. You're exactly right about that. Jill, same question to you. The next 100 days are a success if what?
I would say if we're past the honeymoon phase, then now we have to start moving into the phase where we get rid of the bad and or ineffective people in the administration. We have to cut the rot out of these agencies. And I applaud the move, right? If Mike Waltz wasn't your guy for NSA, guess what? Throw him out there for UN ambassador. Cool. I'm fine with that. He wasn't doing the job effectively the way that Donald Trump wanted him to. Make the change, right? We have to be willing to look at the situation the way that it's presented right now and say, is this absolutely moving forward with the Trump mandate in the best, most effective way? And if it's not, cut your losses and move on. And this fight that they're having over Cali Means is an interesting one in regards to this.
All right, let's get to predictions. I'm going to do something I never do. I am going to go first. Okay. And this is a weeping prophet prediction. But in examining as many public statements and actions of Robert Prevost yesterday as I could. Yes, you can find... Now, I had not seen the homily this morning, Todd, that you alluded to, so I want to make note of that. But yes, and I cited them in my roundabout here a little while ago. You can find things on moral issues that'll sound good, but a lot of those things are also 8, 10, 12 years ago. The one thing he has been consistently outspoken on, that is a contemporary hot-button social issue in recent times, and I mean the most recent times, is immigration. Even with the MSNBC El Salvadorian Garcia, Katz narrative, he was perpetuating that and everything else. The timing of appointing him as the first American pope, and that he is a direct protege of some kind of Pope Francis. Let me just say, man, I want to be wrong about this. Very wrong. But I'm going to predict he is going to attempt to do to the Trump administration and attempts to restrict immigration into the country something similar to what Pope John Paul II did in using his platform as an attempt of moral authority to undermine the Soviet Union. And I think that the church has been very uncomfortable all along with the United States securing its borders, and Francis has been outspoken of that on his last few years consistently. You select an American, you put an American bishop there, cardinal there, uniquely positioned to chastise and condemn President Trump and the American people. Look at his age. This will not be like a 20-year papacy. I absolutely believe, my instincts are telling me that's why he's there. And that's what's going to happen. I want to be wrong. And I want all my Catholic friends, man, to put me in the rack 3 or 4 or 5 years from now. I would gleefully accept that. But when I do the math, that's the equation I come to. And that's what I think is going to happen. That's my prediction. All right, quickly, Aaron, yours, go.
The COVID jabs will be pulled, and the majority, not all, but the majority of the people who are the loudest and angriest right now will continue to be loud and angry about other things.
Jill, quickly, go.
George Santos will have company. Right now, he's the only member that hasn't had a conviction that's been kicked out of Congress since the Civil War. He'll have another name added to that list with him soon.
On the strength of the shout out I got on Jill's show a couple nights ago, I will be named to the Presidential Commission with Nick Saban to save college sports.
I would love to see that happen. Seconded.
I dare you to do better because you can.
All right, Jill, good to see you as always. All right, have a great weekend. Thank you.
You too.
All right, we'll come back.
Bye,
it'll be your turn when we do here with some Feedback Friday. Stay tuned. We're back here with Hour 2, live and on demand here on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre, and you are you. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox, which you can take advantage of by emailing the show, steve@stevedeace.com, DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Don't forget, you can also subscribe, and please do subscribe to our new YouTube channel, at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, if you wouldn't mind doing this for us, if you love the podcast version of the show, please hit subscribe, or if you're on Apple iTunes, hit follow. That way, every time we do a new show, it shows up in your feed for podcast every time. And then make sure to also leave us a 5-star review. Those really help to appease the algorithms that govern society as we speak. Not to mention, boost our own very fragile male egos. So thank you guys very much for each and every one of those. Please keep those coming as well. And this part of the show brought to you by our friends over at Preborn. There's a new study out that probably should be front page news. It's according to data from the Foundation for the Restoration of America. More than 11% of women who took the abortion pill in 2023 experienced serious complications. That's over 1 in 10. Now, we're talking about a drug that's marketed as, quote, safe and easy. And it's handed out like ibuprofen. We've turned virtually every mailbox in America into an abortion clinic. And yet the risks are staggering. Not to mention, it's got a really high murder rate for the child, too. Really high. But how often have you seen that reported, that stat, though? Maybe on networks like this, if you follow the Blaze, right? At preborn network clinics, these statistics just aren't numbers. They're women. They share this kind of data with women, as well as the ultrasound that people like us help to pay for to convince them to convict their conscience, not to sear it, not to harden your heart, to not go into the darkness that you embrace, that you immerse yourself in when you do something like commit murder, but especially against your own flesh and blood. And they do this with conviction, yes, but also real compassion, counseling, medical care. They're there for prenatal, postnatal for mom if she chooses to have the baby. You know, all that they do here for moms and their babies, all of it. And a lot of times it has eternal consequences. All of it is free of cost to them. But of course, none of it is free. And that's where you and I come in. If you want to make a tax-deductible donation to continue the mission of this fantastic organization, just dial pound 250, say the keyword baby on your mobile phone. That's pound 250. Say the keyword baby on your mobile phone, or go to preborn.com/Steve. That's preborn.com/Steve. And Preborn has a 100% charity rating so that you can give with confidence at preborn.com/Steve. All righty. Are we ready for some Feedback Friday?
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's go here. From Grant Asaski, who sent this note after listening to the conversation we had on Monday with our good friend Bob Vanderplots about what's happening in the Iowa governor's race. He writes, it sounds like this open governor's race opportunity is the perfect culmination of your career, and it's at a perfect providential time. Your kids are leaving the nest. Your marriage is in the best place yet. You understand the times. You have decades of name ID and goodwill, battle scars, a demonstrated ability to get things done, like with the Iowa Supreme Court judges, and a sense of duty. I'll be praying for you as you decide what to do. If you ever need any campaign help, reach out, man. I'll move our entire family to Iowa. Well, first of all, Grant, that is extremely kind. All right, so thank you very much. And I've gotten several notes like this, so thank you guys very much. Here's where we're at, just for me on a personal level. And, you know, I've thought a lot about what Dan Bongino did earlier this year when he left his show behind. A way more lucrative show than mine, guys. And this is a 7-figure show. Okay, we're generating 7 figures of revenue in this show. And Dan was generating more 7-figure revenues than us, okay? And he left that behind, and I've thought about that. But there are differences. Number one, we have just started in the last few years generating that kind of revenue in this show. And my wife and I have only been able to put serious money away for retirement, which we don't plan on taking anytime soon, you know? And both of us have careers, me in broadcasting and her in working as a Christian counselor, that are not physically demanding. So as long as we have a base level of health, there's no reason we couldn't continue doing this well into our 70s if the Lord is kind and gracious with that amount of time on this earth. Okay, but we are just now beginning in the last couple of years to be able to afford to put serious money away for things like retirement, medical emergencies, to try and not be any kind of drain on our kids, our adult kids with their own families, you know, when we get to that stage in life, as much as we can. We're just now getting to that point. When Dan left, and I think that you'd be hard-pressed to be more complimentary of what Dan did and the reason he did it and the choice that he made than I have been and I was at the time. Is that fair?
Right.
And I expressed that to Dan privately and to all of you publicly here on our show and in social media. But Dan was leaving for a guarantee. Now, listen, I'm not minimizing his sacrifice. I mean, dude earned a nice life and a nice pad in Florida. He traded that all in to go to D.C. to serve his country. All right. What he did, in my view, is one of the most heroic things we have seen anyone in our movement do in the last few years. Is that fair?
Yeah.
But he also knew that there was a spot there. If he was going to make that sacrifice, that spot was already there for him. The offer was already on the table. He just had to take it. In my case, I would have to risk disrupting not just my own situation, but I have lots of livelihoods that rely on me. These two guys, salespeople, there's lots of livelihoods that rely on me being able to do this. And because I've not been fortunate to have the success of a Bongino, I don't have millions of dollars, built up into the infrastructure of this to try and have it sustain itself to some degree without me for a limited period of time of a few years. We don't have that. All right. And there's no guarantee. I mean, there's no guarantee I'd win a primary. There's no guarantee I'd be the governor. Because of the things, Grant, you said, I think I'd have a way better chance than a lot of people in my position who have contemplated this before or tried this before. But, I just mentioned Bongino. Before Dan became very successful at what we do, Dan tried to run for office too, unsuccessfully. It's not easy to do. Jesse Kelly, before he became very successful at this, he tried to run for office too, right? So it's not easy to do. For now, Iowans need to find out what our Attorney General, Brenna Byrd, is going to do. Based on what I'm told and people I've talked to, it is very clear that the Trump White House would prefer that she runs and is urging her to do so. But she has not made it known that it is something she definitively wants to do. She has an 8-year-old boy at home. She's already, the Attorney General of Iowa. So, she's already making a major contribution. So does she want to have even more family disruption to run for governor? You don't know. It's also very hard to say no to a White House when they ask you to do something. Right? I'm reminded of when I was on Cruz's campaign and our kids were younger then. And they kept asking me, Daddy, are we going to have to move to D.C. if we win? Are we going to have to move to D.C. if we win? And I knew the answer to that was probably yeah. But, at the time, I just kept telling him over and over again, let's win and see what happens and if we have that problem. But it's very difficult to say no when a president of the United States calls you and asks you to serve your country. It's very difficult to say no to that, right? So that's kind of where I'm at, but it's also kind of a microcosm of where the entire state of Iowa is at right now. There would be a lot of excitement around Brenna if she chooses to run, particularly because she'd have the support of President Trump, who's extremely popular in our state. There's not a lot of support for several of the other names you've heard in our media around here, not named Brenna Byrd. There's not a lot of great excitement about that. So I think everything's kind of on hold right now, waiting to see what she decides to do. And who knows? Maybe Kim Reynolds will shock us and realize I've got more, there's more life in the old lady yet, so to speak, right? And maybe I was a little harsh or rash in saying I wasn't going to run again. You never know. But that's kind of where things are at in our state. And since, we play a role in our state too, that is also where things are at with us. You guys want to comment on this at all?
No, I think you hit all of the variables, and there's several chainsaws that need to be juggled simultaneously on this issue to figure it out.
Yeah, there are a lot of... I'll just say this from my perspective. The next... I would like to have probably of the candidates that we've talked about on air or are thinking about running, Brenna would probably be our best option. But again, there are like 5,000 variables here, so we're not hitching our caboose to one train quite yet.
All right, let's move on. Susan Edgerton said, hey, you said on the show the other day that there were really just two great governors right now, and one was not running again, and yours, and the other one could not, and Ron DeSantis. But I beg to differ. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, governor of Arkansas, is almost always overlooked, and she is fantastic. So I'm curious, why have you overlooked her? Could you please talk about that on your show? Yes. I was talking about this in context of who led the resistance in the years between Trump. And I mean, I have not talked to Sarah in a few years, but I mean, I knew Sarah Huckabee when she was getting us coffee and donuts for the 2008 Iowa caucus campaign of her daddy. So I've got a soft spot for her, always have. And she's been a great governor, but she just got elected, right? 22. So she just took office in January of 23. And so I was speaking more specific or more broadly that those two governors, and to some degree, Brian Kemp too. Brian Kemp has been very good on several things, and then very, what you doing on a few other things. It's been, but those, so let's say 2.5. We'll throw Brian Kemp in there half the time. Fair? Okay. Mm-hmm. Those 2.5 governors, basically the time between the Trumps, Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0, okay, the time between the Trumps, those 2.5 governors were the leaders of the resistance against the spirit of the age. And then Sarah got elected in 22, and she has been fantastic. Her state just signed a bill into law in her state to make ivermectin available over the counter, for example. Okay, so no slight intended towards Sarah whatsoever. It's just that she just got elected, in the middle of this era that we were talking about, and that's why she wasn't, first of mind for me.
I'll just say, I obviously keep track of her maybe a little bit more closely than I might otherwise.
With your daughter there? Yeah.
With my daughter there. And when she became, Ainsley was named to the NCAA lawsuit, the governor proactively reached out to Ainsley and said, anything I could do to help, we're proud of you. So I honestly think right now, if this is a successful Trump White House and J.D. Vance is the nominee, I think Sarah Huckabee is as likely a candidate to be vice president as anybody.
I think that could be a very astute observation. Yep. And then you want to talk about a dynamic messaging ticket, because she was terrific as Trump's spokeswoman. Yeah. I mean, that would be a dynamic messaging ticket for sure. Let's go next here to Heather. Can you talk a bit more about the judge situation? I agree that Trump should not follow their rulings. In fact, I'm actually wondering if the courts have no authority, why does the Trump administration go to the court in the first place? Why even feed into the circus? But beyond that, I'm struggling with how to reconcile the stances with rulings in civil, financial, crime, criminal, etc. cases. Why shouldn't those rulings be ignored as well? We can say if someone breaks the law, there are repercussions, but the law apparently is up for interpretation. What if I interpret the law differently? I'm having a hard time working this out. Can you break it down? I'm sure I'm missing something. You're actually not. Heather, you are actually very astute. And it's because, well, first of all, this is what happens when we play God. Let's make sure we have a very broad worldview understanding of this before we get into the weeds, because the devil will be in the details here. But let's all understand why we are here. We are here because these judges have decided that they are God. By and large. And for every Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito and James Ho, there's 50 judges elsewhere that believe they're some form of God. The Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, in the clip that Aaron played yesterday, as I explained to you, he is saying, I am a God. Literally, if I write something down, thus speaketh Zarathustra, it cannot be challenged. I am the final word. Forever. Someone you never voted for. And I cannot be checked. I cannot be balanced. That's what he said. So there's a term I've used the last few years that needs to be reset. Okay? Because I haven't used it very much here in really since the election result went our way. The situation I described still exists. It's just not as ever present in the daily events, since our guys are now the ones running the show. Okay? So you probably heard me say a lot in the last couple of years, especially, that the social compact in America is broken. Now, what is a social compact? All human relationships, all of them, operate under the framework and premise of a social compact. And then a lot of times there is some form of ceremonial action that will then take that social compact and codify it either into a contract that has the force of law, and therefore is binding. A covenant, which is even more binding than that, because now you get into, moral and spiritual terms. So, for example, Amy and I had a social compact before we got married. We had already made a decision that this was the person we wanted to spend the rest of our lives with. We already made a mutual decision that this was the person we wanted to have sexual fidelity with. We already made a decision that this is the person we wanted to, that we each wanted to raise a family with, do life together with. And the ceremony that confirmed this was the wedding itself. But the wedding is not the social compact. It is the social compact that exists between the two of us that is the reason we are now having said wedding. Similarly, the Constitution is not the social compact. It is the ceremonial binding of that social compact. That's why it begins with the words, "We the people." When you gave your wedding vows, I vow to do this. She vowed, in my case, maybe in your case, you're the wife, so he vowed to do this. That's what we the people is. It's a form of a vow. Because the next words are, in order to form a more perfect union. So then what is the social compact of America? Well, it's written out in the Declaration of Independence's opening framework. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, and among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. 13 independent colonies got together one day and compacted with each other that this would be the social compact that would bind them together. And then they had a constitution to contractually bind that, binding further. What's happened in especially the last 100 years, but has accelerated greatly in the last few decades, is the courts have broken the social compact. They have determined they are a law unto themselves, and they frequently act lawlessly. Many times, even when they're ruling in our favor, it is for like the wrong reasons. So like think of the Hobby Lobby case. That was one of the landmark cases we've won in the last decade. All right. But the court actually, the Jack the Cake Baker, the first case, my mistake, the Jack the Cake Baker case. And the court ruled in his favor that the state of Colorado could not punish him for not baking a cake for a so-called gay wedding. But it didn't do so because there's a social compact saying that I have a right to my own religious conscience. The state has no jurisdiction in what goes on between me and the Creator. That's between the Creator and me. And that same Creator is no respecter of persons, so therefore the state is just as accountable to him as I am. That's not the rationale they made, was it?
No.
The rationale they made was if Colorado could prove that they did this for any other reasons other than religious animus, then it was totally fine to persecute Cake Baker Jack. So a lot of times, even when we win, we're not winning on the merits that we want to win on. Technicalities, loopholes. Most of the time, even when the courts rule in our favor, it is not from the framework of the worldview by which they should, but something they've just devised unto themselves. And then, of course, when they rule against us most of the time, they're literally just making stuff up, whole cloth, conjuring things like gods. I think that's what they are acting as if. They speak and then we speak in response to say, so say we all, or amen. And so because of that, Heather, that actually does call into question everything else. You're right about this. This is why we have to go back to the beginning. You know, what I used to say a lot, this is a football. Vince Lombardi's very first line to the Green Bay Packers when he took over. This is a law. What is a law? What is it based on? What is the substance of law? What is the essence of it? Who determines what the law is? Is there a law.com that we all go to and we do a search and that tells us and we all agree that's what it says, there's no disagreement? Is there a higher law? Well, that founding document, again, where there's a social compact, it based itself on what are called the laws of nature and nature's God. That's not some poetic statement. That is a direct reference to the writings of lots of chief philosophers in that era. And even going back way earlier than that. Natural law teachings of Thomas Aquinas, that'd be about what, like the 11th, 12th century, somewhere in there? Is that right? Somewhere in there?
Thomas Aquinas? Yeah. He's later.
Later than that?
A little later than that, yeah.
Okay. Augustine, now you're going back to what, the 4th century?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, Augustine just flat out said, as the Bishop of Hippo, you can't, as Christians were being tested all the time, depending on who Caesar was, whether to bow to Caesar as God or not, you cannot do that. You can never do that. There's a higher law. We can't worship idols. That's a violation of the commandments. So yes, if the threat is, we take your life or you worship Caesar, as Jesus said, fear the man, not who can just destroy your body, but the one who can destroy your body, but also cast your soul into hell. And he says, he is God and there is no other. So do not bow. And the Christians guessed what they did not do. They didn't bow. We've lost that hierarchy of law. So we have to actually reestablish all of this to answer these kinds of questions. For now, if you commit a crime, let me try to make this as simple as possible. If you do something the laws of nature and nature's God says is immoral, that used to be the basis for our crimes. And if the court holds you accountable to that standard, you should be held accountable to that standard. Period. End of sentence. Similarly, the biblical worldview, let your yes be yes, your no be a no. God cared so much about integrity that when the ancient Israelites were actually fooled by a people into contracting with them to not go to war with them and to keep them as kind of second-class citizens, and then they found out later that they tricked them, God even said to them, nope, we're going to keep your word. So you're not going to be able to lay waste to them. You will keep them as second-class citizens. You gave them your word. So you enter into a contract with somebody, and it's a valid contract. Like, these aren't contracts between drug dealers, human traffickers, right? You enter into a valid contract for something of justifiable worth or work or productivity, what have you, property, and you don't honor your end, you should absolutely be held accountable for that. If, however, any court is telling you to do something that God says is wrong, you should not do it. In fact, I would urge you that you cannot do it, regardless of whatever earthly penalties you may face. The ones you'll face in the next life way outweigh those. And that furthermore, if you worship God and Him alone in these kinds of circumstances on the authority of the Word of God, I believe there is a crown awaiting you in eternity for doing so. When we get to higher forms of law, like what's the Constitution say? No president, no governor. You took an oath of office. That oath of office right out of Article 2 of the Constitution, it doesn't end with the words, so help me the court. It ends with what words? So help me God. Because that's ultimately who we agree is the real authority here. The one you're swearing an oath on behalf of is the authority figure. You're saying, hold me accountable to this. Presidents and governors should never do things that the Word of God says are bad, or the laws of nature and nature's God. Does the law of nature and nature's God say it's bad to let your people be invaded by drug dealers, murderers, and human traffickers? Yes, so you shouldn't do it. But what if John Roberts says you should? What should a president or governor do? The so help me God part, not the so help me John Roberts. Even though he thinks he's a God, he's not. He's just a guy named John. And he's 70 and he's not buying green bananas. And hell is really hot and forever. And if you listen to guys named John Roberts instead of guys named Almighty God, you'll find that out. Do that enough times. Now, there's more that can be said about this, Heather, and everyone else. We could do volumes of works on this, and volumes of works have been done by the likes of Aquinas and Augustine and others. But for now, that is the simplest explanation for how law works and how it was intended to work by the people that founded the country. You guys have any thoughts on that?
Well, I think her example was small claims in the letter or something like that. But, I mean, I think you go back to the beginning. Is there a right for that court, and does it have legitimate authority to exist or not within that specific purview? Here within immigration, I think Steve did a expert level explanation there, but like, is there anything in the Constitution where judges have authority over immigration enforcement?
No.
See, this is the thing. We talk all about within those courts standing. The judge doesn't have standing here. That's the thing. Forget about enforcing it, even getting involved. And that's where they've gamed the system, where they just do the thing that is so over the top and keep doing it, and they get away with it. No one calls them on it. That's the game. This is a psyop on all of us.
And then if you try to stop them from doing or reset things to how they were supposed to be before they did that, you're the anarchist, you're the insurrectionist, you're the Nazi, you're the fascist. Yeah. In other words, they're calling you exactly what it is that they have been doing all along. Yes.
No, it is the ultimate projection. Absolutely. And I think the judiciary, and I don't think it necessarily is unique to this country. I think it's unique to the profession maybe, but the judiciary is just 200 proof, straight no chaser what happens when an institution repeatedly on a daily basis smells its own farts and thinks that it smells really good. Or a person smells his or her own farts and thinks that smells really good. It is the ultimate expression of id and ego.
Yep.
That is completely unearned, and most of these people that represent you, that are judges in this court system, have no profile on a personal level of even being the sort of person that they think that they are. This is the government version of journalists who wake up in the morning, look at themselves in the mirror, and say, "You are a Navy SEAL." No, these people are utterly unimpressive, most of them. Very smart people, but utterly unimpressive. But they think that they're really, really cool. They think that they are, tying this full circle, they think that they are small g gods. It's the ultimate expression of human ego and id.
Amen. We'll come back. When we do, more Feedback Friday. Stay tuned. Back here on the Steve Deace Show, in these unprecedented times,
Ding.
Where we have this thing now, it's relatively new. Well, it's actually not that new, but it's been gone for a bit. It's called a real estate market. A real estate market, but we buy and sell houses. That has not happened very often as of late in America. All right, so we're trying to get that going again, and maybe you're one of the reasons why. All right, you're doing your part. Well, make sure you've got an agent you can trust, because a lot's changed since the last 5-6 years, since the last time we had one of these robust versions of said thing. Where would you find such an agent? The name kind of says it all. Go to realestateagentsitrust.com. That's realestateagentsitrust.com. They're going to pair you with one of the top selling real estate agents in your area or the area you're trying to get to. Someone who knows the best practices, understands the crazy market, the new updated ways of doing things, a real closer, a leader, and someone that'll get you the ultimate result you want. All right. So a lot of times, too, that person is from right here in the Blaze audience. So you got that in common as well. Get started today where the name says it all. realestateagentsitrust.com. Again, that's realestateagentsitrust.com. And please get started as well with a subscription to Blaze TV. We make it as affordable as we possibly can. Those designer coffees you're buying each day, well, the cost of one of them for a month is what it costs for Blaze TV. $8. $8 a month is all it costs. If you get the discounted annual subscription from me at blazetv.com/Deace. That's blazetv.com/Deace. Use the promo code Deace so you don't miss all of the exclusive content that we do for subscribers here on Blaze TV. That's blazetv.com/Deace. Use the code Deace for $20 off your annual subscription. 26 cents a day. It'll come down to $8 a month for Blaze TV, unfiltered, unafraid, and on demand. All right, let's get back to Feedback Friday. Okay. One of the smartest things the Trump campaign did was start up a 2-month head start on the transition out of pocket. Agreed. Yes, it was a risk to do so and assume victory against Kamala, but it also helped put people at ease that the adults were now in charge. People on the left were asking, did he really read all the stuff he's been signing? Dude was on a mission at the start of his administration like I've never seen before, and it was something to behold. Now the administration needs to take a similar formula and start the planning on how they're going to transform a number of these executive orders on the docket to be signed into law in the coming weeks so they can be lasting, beneficial legislation. We all know that's not going to just automatically happen with these razor-thin majorities in Congress. All right? So the time is now for Susie Wiles and her team to do something with the goal of not just building an R versus D majority, but also primarying those who are legitimate barriers to progress. Without it, all the fireworks of these early executive orders will go up in smoke the minute a new president from the other side of the aisle takes the oath of office one day, just like we saw with Joe Biden 4 years ago. All right. One of Trump's strongest attributes is getting people to buy in behind simple messaging, and keeping this on the horizon is going to be a vital component for how successful the next 4 years will be, starting with getting Congress to push an agenda that aligns with his executive orders. That's from Doug Ripley. So this is something we've talked about a lot. During the roundtable, Aaron, you even said that you thought this was key to the next 100 days of the Trump administration being successful as well. And I would like us to spend a couple of minutes discussing a question that I know has befuddled a good portion of our audience, several of our friends, and myself as well. Okay? So yesterday, when it came out that Ed Martin was not going to have the votes to be U.S. attorney. Now, Trump, to his credit, ended up giving Ed Martin a position at the Department of Justice. I will tell you, I did privately communicate with Ed last night. And I will tell you that he is extremely excited about the position that Trump created for him within the Department of Justice. He's going to run a working group on weaponization and pardons. In other words, Trump gave him a working group inside the Department of Justice to do exactly the reason these rhinos didn't want to vote him in as U.S. attorney, because they knew he was going to do stuff like that. So he just gave him a working group and the power to do that within the Department of Justice. And from Ed's perspective, I can tell you, he feels like he's going to be more fully unleashed doing this than he even would have been as U.S. attorney. So he's excited. Nevertheless, there are political consequences to Trump letting Tom Tillis get away with this. So two things as we were talking about before the show, two things can be true at once. This is a pretty clever workaround that Trump and his team have come up with. It's pretty obvious. Ed seems sufficiently satisfied with the workaround that he has been given. Okay. So muy bien on that, right? Muy bien on that. Okay. You know, but there are still political consequences for letting Tom Tillis and John Cornyn and those people do to Ed Martin and his confirmation what they actually did. And a question that is befuddling a lot of people right now is this one. Why is it that when the hardcore right-based guys like Chip Roy and Thomas Massie, when they're not on board, they get threats of primaries, which they've beaten every single time and would continue to beat, by the way, okay? But why is it that they get threats of primaries from either the president himself or some of his, well-known associates? But when Tom Tillis and John Cornyn are out there trying to knife Ed Martin, when Tom Tillis is found openly conspiring with the media to undermine Pete Hegseth, when they don't want to, when they're doing literally nothing for days on end. I mean, how many members of Congress right now, if they were given the Doge test, name 5 things you did today, and one of them cannot be talk to a donor, how many of them would be able to fill that out with something you'd find meaningful as a constituent?
0. I'm convinced it is 0.
I think that's even true of the really good ones.
Yes.
Because since there's nothing happening, there's not much for Thomas Massie and Chip Roy to do.
We're talking about 5 things.
Yes.
Not just one.
Name 5 things that you did today, and and one of them cannot be talk to a donor. So this mystery right now is, okay, so you guys tell us then that the standard is Trump wants people to be loyal to him and he's a king. Fine. All right, so that would explain then why Chip Roy and Thomas Massie, when he views them as disloyal, like any king would, he threatens them, tries to leverage them, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, why doesn't the same standard apply when the rhinos undermine him all the time? And yesterday, in fact, he said if Tom Tillis and John Cornyn didn't want to vote for Ed Martin, they should, quote, follow their hearts. That's a direct quote, folks. I saw the clip. That's what he said. All right. And so people are befuddled by this. People we work with and know, a sizable chunk of this audience is befuddled by this. Let's discuss why this could be the case. And I'm going to make an executive decision and take one thing off the table because I think it is profoundly stupid. Because
he's a deep state agent. He's infiltrated the Republican Party and undermined the conservative movement and made it. He's a New York liberal.
He took a bullet to the face.
In case you're listening to this and you're not on social media, you might be thinking or tempted to think that Steve is exaggerating.
No.
Right now. This is a real take.
This is a real take. So to quote the great prophet Tom Cruise in the movie Tropic Thunder. All right, listen up. I need you to calm down. Right? I need you to listen clearly. Okay? Calm down, listen clearly, and hear me when I say I need you to back up and shoot yourself in the face. Do that. Okay? He took a bullet to the face. They tried to put him in prison for 94 years over failure to disclose a $25,000 hush payment on a campaign disclosure. They've tried to bankrupt him. They've impeached him twice. He's not a deep state double agent, guys. He didn't infiltrate anything. And the party is actually more right now than it has actually ever been. This is the most right-wing and based messaging the party's ever had. And if you voted for George W. Bush and Karl Rove's Guns and Butters for 8 years, but you think this is the sellout, I can't help you. I can't help you. You're beyond help. So I'm taking, I don't know, I don't think either one of you guys entertain this stupidity, but in case you were, I'm just taking it off the table. We're not even going to entertain that. It is so dumb. Okay. Nevertheless, so agreed so far?
Yes.
Okay. So that's off the table because that's profoundly stupid. Nevertheless, though, this dynamic does remain. We are still left to wrestle with, okay, why do the Chip Roys and Thomas Massies of the world, they get the bum's rush, right? If they go off the reservation, but John Cornyn and Tom Tillis, those types, Lisa Murkowski, yeah, people like Charlie Kirk and John Rich and major MAGA influencers went after him, but nope, the White House didn't. I mean, Trump will go after Chip and Massie and others by name if they try to get to his right. But he never goes after the members of Congress on the Republican Party because they stay to his left. Why? We do still have to wrestle with that dynamic. It does exist. It's very obvious, okay? I'm going to give you my hypothesis, and you guys tell me what you think. I don't think Trump has nearly the influence with them in office that many people think that they do, and I think that he realizes this. And I think that the reason why he tries to influence and leverage the right flank is because his base in the party is the right flank. And he can leverage them. His base in the party is not the Chamber of Commerce crowd. And that's why I think he doesn't do it. And I think there is concern by Trump and his inner circle that if he tries to exert great influence on these Republicans while they're in office, you have to understand, these Republicans, many of them could just walk away and make the kind of money we know they're making under the table, make it above the table and more day one. Lobbyists, consultants, law firms, okay? Hell, day trading, looking at some of their portfolios, all right? Mm-hmm. So they could just walk away, retire, leave you with no majority at all, just resign, leave you with nothing, screw you on the way out and cash a massive check. That's the swamp man, the revolving door. And I think there is concern that if he were to try and exert that much public leverage on these people while they're in office and it didn't work, it would undermine the perception of his strength in trying to negotiate trade deals around the world, trying to negotiate peace deals and arms deals around the world. And I think that's why he doesn't do it. Now, what I cannot explain is why he doesn't do it in the primaries, because there he could take a lot of these people out. I don't have a hypothesis for that one yet. Maybe you guys do, but that's why I think Tillis and Cornyn do not get the treatment the Massey and Royce do. And I don't necessarily even disagree with that assessment if they have it. I don't. A lot of these Republicans were here long before Trump got here and probably are thinking they're going to be here long after he's gone. But he could take a lot of these people out in primaries. I mean, did you guys see the poll in the Florida governor's race today?
No.
Had Casey DeSantis up on Byron Donalds by 5 points. But the minute people in the poll found out that Trump endorsed Byron Donalds, he goes up by 20 points. He could take a lot of these people out in primaries. I can't give you at least not that I can think of anyway, a rationale for why he doesn't do it. So that's my hypothesis. I turn it over to you guys. What do you think?
I have a rationale, and I gave it months ago, and I don't remember the context. And I remember you actually saying that could be it. I think his worldview is such that he lumps in Roy, Massey, principled ideologues of a various strain, and he lumps them into the same bet he thought he was making with Mike Pence. And that he resents, and it didn't get him anything he wanted on multiple fronts. I think it's
that these people can't govern. They really won't stand in the gap.
What good are all your principles? Look at how you were a total failure to me. And I'm not even thinking of what you think about what he did on January 6th or not. But Mike Pence was a failure of a vice president.
So he lumps these movement conservatives all into a whole cloth, is what you're saying.
And he said, I'm going to different.
When the differences between Chip Roy and Mike Pence are pretty much the differences between your mom and your dad. But okay. Yeah,
and then he also says, and again, rightly so, poor Chip and poor Thomas Massey on this, but why am I dying on your hill? Where are your numbers? Those guys know, they would have to agree with Trump on that. Yeah, I know, I'm out here all alone all the time.
I am telling you right now, I absolutely believe, and I said this to Chip yesterday, I absolutely believe if Ron DeSantis were president right now and tried to repeal Obamacare, I think the Tom Tillis, John Cornyn Republicans would shut the government down and not let him do it. I absolutely believe that. 100% I do.
Republicans suck. Yeah.
Aaron, what do you think?
Todd just stole the words out of my mouth.
Oh, sorry.
Republicans suck. That's my hypothesis. Now, this dynamic, I was trying to figure this out this week. How many senators does it take to convict and remove? Is he really scared about that, being knifed by these guys? But it's still 2/3, isn't it? 67, something like that?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So that's not a concern. Shouldn't be anyway. So I find both of your arguments compelling, but I think it might just be more simple that on some level, this is just the king's court with people like Roy and Massey. And so it's easy pickings to remind people who's the king. And then the rest of the time, it's just these people suck. That could just be the math. Just could be the math. These people suck. I'm going to try the best that I can. But I'm not going to try to change them because they're not going to change. They were here before I got here, in some cases. Going to be here probably a long time after I leave. And he's just seeing that for what it is. That could just be the beginning and the end of the math. It's maddening. Don't get me wrong here. This dynamic is maddening. I mean, it's head-scratching at the least. But I think that just could be what's going on. Just as simple as that.
I think the goal, that his personal goal, is that his lasting legacy will be resetting the global economic order and trade market, because it's something he has cared about for decades. There's clips of him saying the things that he is saying now, going back well into the early 80s. It's what I saw with my own eyes when he was wooing me to work for him. It's what he launched his own presidential campaign in Iowa with at his very first campaign event, was all the stuff he is saying now on trade. and China specifically. But it also is, these are things he can largely just do on his own. He has the power and authority to do without needing Congress really at all, without having a lot of judicial oversight really at all. And I think you can see the amount of energy and capital he is spending on this is indicative of he believes that this is probably going to be his lasting legacy as a president. Which I think also speaks to his worldview, but also speaks to what you guys said, his assessment of the system as a whole. And really what is ultimately accomplishable within said system. Which is why I do believe if Ron DeSantis were president right now and tried to repeal Obamacare, and I think that he would try. I think the Republicans in Congress would revolt and threaten to shut the government down on him. And then the media would all come to... Look at what Ryan Walters is facing, where the media comes to his aid when the Republican Party undermines him. I think the same thing you'd watch nationally with President DeSantis trying to get rid of Obamacare. Everybody have a great weekend. See you again on Monday. We'll see which studio I'm in. Until then, Romans 8:28.